both the government pays a huge amount of money and the private sector pays for professionals a huge amount of salaries. So we don't have a new entrepreneurial class in South Africa that has come up over the last 30 years. So the existing businesses are the businesses that existed before.
I mean, so where is the country heading? I mean, can you think of another parallel? Is it Argentina? Is it Venezuela? Is it Brazil? Is it Nigeria? Is it Indonesia? Is it Malaysia? I mean, is a place that you think?
Well, South Africa. Argentina is a better example than the ones you've given.
Yep.
South Africa has the huge mineral deposits.
Right.
So it can keep going on the strength of its mineral deposits.
Yeah.
It has, as I point out, a very strong private sector, which is very powerful, which is very productive. Whatever its weaknesses, maybe it's very productive. So South Africa can keep going, but it's not growing.
Yeah.
So, and then the public sector, the government is increasing government debt because it's increasing public spending through social welfare, through high salaries for the public service. Yeah. And then it is incurring more debt. So the closer model for South Africa is Argentina.
Okay.
Where you end up with a big debt, and eventually with the International Monetary Fund helping you to manage the public finances.
Do you get a populist leader, South Africa's own version of Eva Peron or something? I mean, you know, how does it fit in politically with what's happened in Argentina? Corrupt political elite, mouthing populist policies, but actually...
But that's what you have now. The ANC has the so-called expropriation of land without compensation. It's similar to the populism you get with the Peronist in Argentina. So it's no different. It's not very different.
So, but you seem to think that steady state, with the natural resources this country has, the engagement of business in sort of propping stuff up, whatever it's doing, it can tick over for quite a while. Because I've been talking to quite a few people who are a bit more alarmist. They say what's happening now is a lot of South Africans are just like voting with their feet. And, you know, I mean, and many of these are the very people, the black entrepreneurs that were the great hope after 1990 and 1994. And they're just saying, to hell with this. We're going somewhere else, or we can do stuff in the States, Europe, wherever. But do you regard that as a threat? This sort of loss of skills, loss of national even identity that with the project, that you know that the economic troubles have actually are just sort of encouraging people to quit.
Yes, we are having some hemorrhaging. Yeah. Of skilled people from South Africa. That is true. Yeah. But that is not what brings about real political change. Yeah. In any country. You know, if you leave the country, then you cease being a political agent. Yeah. So that is not really a threat to the current system. Immigration is not a threat to it.
It's just another economic problem they have to manage.
Yeah, it's an indicator. It's a symptom. Of a non-performing economy.
But again, you know, on the sort of political front, you do see lots of popular protest. I mean, every day, in fact, and you know, they're often connected with service delivery, other things. But the general feelings you say is that there's a lack of trust on the part of people in the government at the centre. Is that sustainable without sort of pretty wholesale repression? Because at the moment, South Africa, you can do what you want, say what you want. I mean, overtly anyway. You know, it's a tolerant system. It seems. I mean, certainly there were periods under the previous president, Jacob Zuma, where obviously people were scared to speak out and, you know, and so on. But things seem to have opened up again. Where's the political climate going, do you think? I mean, if times continue to get tougher, are we going to see more repression, or what are we going to see?
Well, the state has the capacity to put down, let me say, the protests by the poor.
Yeah.
And it demonstrated that how far it is willing to go if the key interests, like the mining interests, are threatened, which we saw in Marikana, where 34 miners were killed by the police and many were injured.
Yeah.
So it's very clear that's what the authorities want to show, that if you threaten the core interests out of which they benefit, like mining, or the banks, or those key parts of the South African economy, they will react with a very, very heavy hand.
Right.
So all the other protests, I think these are fragmented protests, which there are small fires which the police can get on top of.
I mean, one of the things that happened on the political landscape under Jacob Zuma was a fracturing of the ANC. Out of that grew the Economic Freedom Fighters, which seems to have been one of the more, if not most successful sort of offshoots of the ANC compared to, previous breakaway movements. And then there was talk, in fact, there was a breakaway, as you said, in the main Trades Union Federation, and supporters of the National Union of Metal Workers formed their own radical party, Socialist Party, and so on. But the big sort of ideological split in the ANC between what people tend to call the neoliberal faction, which would include Ramaphosa and Tito Mboweni, people like that, and the leftists, never really happened, or at least it didn't split the party in half. Do you think that Ramaphosa and his allies have got a firm grip on the party now in terms of the direction, or do you think there's still a possibility of a breakaway leftist movement to say that, you guys are actually just a bunch of capitalists and we're not getting anywhere under this system?
Yeah, you see, the party in the ANC is not a powerful player in the political economy of South Africa.
Yeah.
It isn't a powerful player.
Right.
So infighting within the ANC does not translate into a crisis in the political economy of South Africa. Precisely because the infighting is about positions. It's about benefits.
Yeah.
It's not about different policies. So the weaknesses and the crisis within the ANC does not translate into a crisis within the broader society.
Do you see the potential for any political movement now, at least a repositioning of people, some of the original idealists who joined the ANC back in the days of apartheid and subsequent to that, to change the political direction of the country? I mean, it's obviously not happening now, but is there a potential? What form would that take? What sort of an alliance could you put together in South Africa of trades unionists, of political activists, even sort of small businesses? I don't know, but something new that would, and also of youth, because it seems that the new and deepening schism in South Africa is between generations. Certainly that generation born in the last 20 years don't tend to be less generous to the ANC, as you've been yourself, in terms of their sort of hard-hitting criticism of the ANC. They've got no time for going back to 1912. They're looking at the next 20, 30 years, and they don't see a very bright future.
Yes, I think there you have you put your finger on something. The real dynamism in South Africa are the young graduates, the young professionals who are coming out of our universities during the last 10 years or so. They are the source of dynamism. Of course, a segment of them get absorbed by big business and they get very fat salaries. A section of them get absorbed by the state bureaucracy and they also get very fat salaries. But there are sections of them who don't. So that is one of the areas that as the economy stagnates, a bigger number of this group of unemployed graduates. And you mustn't forget that the Arab Spring was triggered by unemployed graduates. Yeah. So South Africa has those dynamics.
Because at the time, I mean, in 2011, when the Arab Spring really took off, so-called, well, actually North African Spring in Libya, Tunisia, and Egypt, and so on, I remember you saying South Africans shouldn't feel so self-satisfied about this, or at least the ruling class in South Africa shouldn't feel so self-satisfied, because this is going to replicate itself at the other end of the continent. Do you think we're moving towards that now?
I think we have a potential. I don't think it's here.
Yeah.
But I think South Africa this is one of the dynamics, one of the scenarios, let me put it that way, that one has to watch about South Africa is what happened in North Africa.
And in terms of the ruling party, of course, I mean, in Egypt and Tunisia, Libya is a separate case, I guess, but the ruling parties in those countries were seen as part of, they're emblematic of the crisis, emblematic of the corruption. And you think that the ANC itself here would be a target? People would say the ANC's, it's just hollowed out. It's what is it?
I mean, we were starting to see attacks on ANC councillors at the local government.
Physical attacks?
Yes.
Right.
So all those kind of red flags, let me put it that way, are starting to appear. But I don't think we are faced with a crisis yet of the scale of even of Tunisia.
Right.
But we have the dynamics, the potential to move that way.
And one of the negatives, obviously, is that certainly in the case of Egypt, the Arab Spring resulted in a shaky government under Mohamed Morsi, and then a reversion to what essentially is a military dictatorship dressed up as a sort of quote-unquote elected regime. Libya has just morphed into open warfare and a fracturing of Tripolitania and Cyrenaica and so on, and all that's gone with it. I mean, it's a pretty risky scenario if South Africa gets to that. I mean, because there are quite a lot of opportunist populist politicians, particularly in this aforesaid fight back group, who their political agenda seems to be, let's just make things as bad as possible. I spoke to an ANC guy earlier this week, and I was asking him, what is the fight back strategy, group strategy? And he said, they want Moody's, the ratings agency, to downgrade South Africa. And then they want more power cuts, and they want things to get as bad as possible in the country. And so everyone will see that Cyril Ramaphosa going after their guys is a policy that isn't working. In fact, Cyril Ramaphosa isn't working, and the idea is to replace him. I mean, does that scenario make any sense to you?
No, I think that's a fantasy world.
Yeah.
Cyril Ramaphosa is not going after anybody. It's the judiciary that is obliged to investigate crimes and wrongdoing.
Yeah.
They don't take their orders from the president. The judiciary in South Africa is quite independent. The so-called fight back group is a mirage, actually. They are part of the ANC elite who think they should be president, or their person should be president rather than Cyril Ramaphosa. But they have no solution to offer the country.
And what about their own ethical position? I mean, quite a lot of them have been accused of pretty serious crimes. And they're being investigated, as you said, they're being investigated by the prosecutor. So, I mean, if, for example, the Secretary General of the party, Ace Magashule, has a pretty senior job in the party, it's like number 2, number 3 in the party hierarchy. What would be the implications if he were to be arrested in the next few months? Would that not lead to some political crisis in the country?
I doubt it.
Right.
I doubt it. Of course, he will say it will.
Yeah.
But
his supporters.
And his supporters, but I don't think so.
And this Africa transformation movement that is met in Kliptown the other day, and they put a motion before Parliament to get rid of Ramaphosa. What chance do you give them of getting anything?
You know, we have 200 political parties in South Africa.